history. It will tell its own story. Let France and her people tell you their story during World War II and the Shoah.
We begin with France emerging from the French Revolution in 1789.
Liberté.
Liberty.
Égalité. Equality.
Fraternité.
Brotherhood.
France is liberté.
Égalité. Fraternité.
With the end of the monarchy, the National Assembly, France's governing body, approved
La Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen.
The Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, 1789.
some of which are
Men are born free with equal rights.
Freedom of opinions and religious expression exists for all.
Every citizen has the freedom to communicate, speak, write, or print. All citizens have an equal right to all public positions according to his ability, virtues, and talent.
Property is a sacred right. No one can be deprived of property except in public necessity and equitably reimbursed.
A citizen is innocent until declared guilty.
France slept in peace between the First and Second World Wars.
Before the war, France represented the country of liberty and joie de vivre, salement.
They came to France thinking that here everything would be all right and that this would be the land of milk and honey. Betty. On Sunday, when it is nice out, the landlords put out a chair and sit in front of the doors of the buildings, watch the people passing by, and chat amongst themselves while knitting. From our window, we like to throw some coins wrapped in newspaper to the singers in the courtyard. Ordinary scenes from a Parisian life. Claudine.
the Nazis invaded France, and after short but fierce fighting, the Vichy government signed an armistice with the Nazis on June 22, 1940.
I saw the Germans arrive in Paris. I was at the Metro Temple. I saw the Germans file by in formation, and I saw all the French applauding vigorously. They were in at least 5-6 rows. The sidewalks were black with people. Everyone applauded the Germans. Albert.
The Germans weren't all brutes. There were some who were really nice. They gave concerts in Paris bandstands. For us, the kids of the neighborhood, it was a sight to see the Germans marching impeccably to the bandstand, all the while playing martial music. At the end, the soldiers gave us candy and little chocolate bars. Leon.
Paris had become a German city. Nazi flags, noises of booze, parades, and Germans shouting insults. It made me sick and afraid, and we were powerless. Arlette.
There immediately were visible signs of change as the Vichy regime took over. The first warning of things to come was the change in the motto of France.
Liberté.
Égalité.
Fraternité.
Liberté.
Travail.
Égalité.
Famille. Fraternité.
Pantry.
Work.
Family.
Country. Replaced.
Liberty.
Equality.
Fraternity.
With France divided into two zones, the Germans occupied the northern half, while the unoccupied zone in the south claimed the city of Vichy as its capital. Maréchal Philippe-Henri Pétain, a hero of the First World War, became the head of the Vichy government.
Maréchal, nous voilà, témoins-toi des sœurs de la France, nous jouons, nous égales, de servir et de suivre tes pas. Maréchal, nous voilà, tu nous as redonné l'espérance de la patrie de l'essor. Maréchal, Maréchal, nous voilà.
Maréchal Philippe Pétain, believing that Hitler would win the war, guided France to work for a united Europe.
Frenchmen, you have learned that Admiral Darlan recently succored your Chancellor Hitler. For you, the French people, it is simply a question of following me without mental reservation along the path of honor and national interest. If through our discipline and our public spirit we can conduct the negotiations in progress, France will surmount her defeat and preserve in the world her rank as a European and colonial power. That, my dear friends, is all that I have to say to you today. Marshal Pétain, May 1941.
With Germany fighting on two fronts, they required manpower to help with work at home. The Vichy government, in collaboration with Germany, created programs to send men to Germany to help work or fight. The war, although brief, left 1 million POWs in Germany. La Relève was designed to send 1 POW home from Germany for every 3 men who volunteered to work in Germany.
Workers of France, it is for the freedom of the prisoners that you will go to work in Germany. It is for our country that you will go in large numbers. Pierre Laval.
The LVF, the Volunteer Legions of France against Bolshevism, or the Tricolor Legion, sent men to fight with the Germans against the communists.
Frenchmen, if you do not accept France being ravaged by Bolshevism, if you do not accept France remaining an inert and mutilated country, join the Tricolor Legion so that France, once again, will find a place among the nations of the continent. Join the Tricolor Legion. The French community, proud of you, will protect its own. Recruiting poster.
The milice, the strong-armed police force used by the Vichy government to control terrorists, i.e. the resistance and Jews, based its program on 21 ideals, represented by the following 11 points.
Against bourgeois selfishness. For French solidarity.
Against individualism. For society.
Against seniority. For worthiness.
Against anarchy. For discipline.
Against equality. For hierarchy.
Against democracy. For authority.
Against international capitalism. For French corporatism.
Against the Gaullist dissonance. For French unity.
Against the Jewish leper. For French purity.
Against the Freemason heathen, for the Christian civilization.
Against ignoring crimes. For punishing the guilty.
Having just lost the war, the French were going through harsh times. Pétain represented hope and restored glory. Many Frenchmen loyally followed their leader and their government in establishing a new order.
We must collaborate completely, even make an alliance with the German people. We French have a heroic past, and to earn our place in the new Europe, we must all, without distinction of class or rank, do our duty. We must help the German people, and by all our means, crush this Russian Bolshevik who only thinks of sowing hatred, misery, and death throughout, and this perfidious Brit, who is always using French blood to fill the vaults of the city. Me, I hated the Germans because I didn't know them. Now that I know them, I say that these men are worthy of our friendship, and in whom we may have confidence. After the victory, they will give us what they promised us. Daniel V, member of LVF.
And when America joins the fight,
It is with sadness that I learned tonight of the aggression of your troops against North Africa. I have always declared that we would defend our empire if we were attacked. You should know that we would defend it against any aggressor, whoever it might be. You should know that I keep my word. It is you who, acting in the name of a country to which so many memories and ties bind us, have taken such a cruel initiative. France and her honor are at stake. We are attacked. We shall defend ourselves. This is the order I am giving. Philippe Pétain replied to President Roosevelt's note, November 8, 1942.
Setting aside the rights of man and citizen, the Vichy regime, in collaboration with the Nazi conquerors, instituted new rules.
Anti-Semitic rules. Statut de Juifs.
Status of Jews.
Status of Jews.
First article. All persons with 3 Jewish grandparents, 2 Jewish grandparents, and 1 Jewish parent are considered a Jew.
Rights of man and citizen.
Men are born free with equal rights.
Status of Jews.
Second article. Public careers forbidden to Jews. Government jobs, police, teachers, military officers, public enterprises.
Rights of man and citizen.
All citizens have an equal right to all public position according to his ability, virtues, and talent.
Status of Jews.
Fifth article. Professions forbidden to the Jews. The newspaper and magazine industries, the film and theater industries, or radio.
Rights of man and citizen.
Every citizen has the freedom to communicate, to speak, to write, or to print.
Status of Jews.
All persons of the Jewish race are required to present themselves within a month to the police station of their community or to the gendarmerie to have Jew stamped on their identity card and on individual food cards. Philippe Pétain, 1942.
Rights of man and citizen.
Freedom of opinions and religious expression exist for all.
Status of Jews.
8th Ordinance regarding the laws against the Jews, 1942.
1. It is forbidden to Jews from the age of 6 years on to appear in public without wearing the Jewish star.
2. The Jewish star is a 6-pointed star having dimensions of the palm of one hand and outlined in black. It is made of yellow cloth with the inscription of Juif in black lettering. It must be visibly worn on the left side of the chest, well sewn onto the garment.
Rights of man and citizen.
Men are born free with equal rights.
I was conscious of being a Jew the day I wore the star, and that all was forbidden to me. Simon.
I can't for the life of me understand why it is legal for the Jews, for us, for me. Shows are forbidden to us. The last car of the subway is strictly reserved for us. The restaurants post signs, forbidden to dogs and to Jews. And this cursed stamp, Jew, on the identity cards, is it dignified of a civilized society? Silly.
Because of the yellow star, my aunt, a beautician, lost her job. She went back to the salon to have her hair done. The person who was shampooing her hair exclaimed, "Wozu." I refused to wash the head of a Jew. My aunt left with a scarf on her head full of soap. Renee.
In the evening, returning with Cecile, 2 men crossed over us. Coming towards us, one of them said to the other, "It is funny, there are some little Jews who are cute." From that moment on, I understood that we were no longer people like others. Henny.
We began to wear the yellow star. I went out in the street, and a very dignified man with the Legion of Honor medal approached me. He raised his hat and said to me, "Monsieur, I beg your forgiveness for France. Then I go to school." And the first day, all of the students of class had to cut out a yellow star, and everyone left with a yellow star. I have extraordinary memories like that. Simon.
The principal of the school, Mademoiselle Lecomte, knew that we were Jewish. She presented us to the school children and said, "You see, children, the caricatures that we see on the wall with all the Jews and their big noses and large bellies, these caricatures are lies. Look at these children. They look like you. They are like you. Therefore, if we see the police enter the schoolyard, you help them get away." And one day, there were some cops in the schoolyard, and all the children helped us get away. Rosa Clara.
On July 16th and 17th, 1942, the French police rounded up over 13,000 Jewish men, women, and children in Paris and detained them in the Veldi, a bike racing stadium, before sending them to the camp of Drancy in the outskirts of Paris. From Drancy, people were then deported to Poland, earning it the nickname of the antechamber to Auschwitz.
The negotiations with the French government have so far yielded the following results. All the stateless Jews in the occupied and unoccupied zones are being readied for deportation. President Laval has proposed to include the deportation of Jewish families from the unoccupied zone, also children under the age of 16. I therefore request an urgent decision by telegram whether children under 16 may be deported, starting with the 15th Jewish transport from France. Document T37T from the trial of Eichmann.
The Veldi looked like a scene from hell. 8,000 Jews were camping there, living literally in their excrements, with nothing to eat or drink for 3 days. Men died, women gave birth. The clamor raised prevented the neighborhood's residents from sleeping for 3 nights. Resistance Newspaper Combat, August 1942. I have to say that during the 3 weeks at Drancy, I never saw a German. I saw only the French, the police. The French flag floated over the camp. Bon le Roland, Pithiviers, Rive Salt, which were French camps. Philip.
Frightful. These children arrived at Drancy after already having been completely neglected for 2 or 3 weeks.
at Beaumont-Roland and PTVA. They arrived with dirty, torn clothes in a very bad condition, often without buttons, often with one of their shoes completely missing, with sores on their bodies.
The children arrived in buses guarded by Vichy policemen. They left the buses in silence. They were taken in groups. The older ones held the younger ones by the hand. They were taken into rooms in which there were no furnishings, but only straw mattresses on the ground. Mattresses which were filthy, disgusting, and full of vermin. George, witness of the Eichmann trial. There was a whole group of non-Jews arrested in Paris on the 8th of June, 1942, the day when all the Jews had to begin wearing the Jewish star. A group of young people particularly, but also older people, went out that day and walked the streets of Paris with imitation Jewish stars of paper in order to ridicule this system which had terribly shocked the French. Some people even went around with dogs to whom they attached stars. They were arrested and brought to Drancy. At Drancy, I knew about 30 such people. They looked like us and wore the yellow star like us, with a little band above it with the inscription, Friend of the Jews. They were released on the 1st of September 1942 after 3 months of detention at Drancy. George, witness of the Eichmann trial.
Coming from Sachsenhausen to Nazi-Wheeler, I could very quickly tell the differences that might exist between the camps and understand all the meaning of the singular label that we were given. NN, Nacht und Nebel, night and frog. We were quite simply already crossed off the list of the living. Dr. Boger.
Suffering from hunger, I managed to sneak into the dog barracks. They were inside a fenced enclosure. I scooped up everything I could with my hands. Dog biscuits made with what looked like all kinds of waste, but they tasted so good. I and a few comrades really enjoyed them. Renee.
They gave us each a red fabric triangle with an F in the middle, and a small white fabric rectangle with a number on it. The next day, we had to sew them over the heart on our ragged uniforms. Numbers. That's all we were now. We were no longer men. I was no longer Eugene Marlowe. I was number 6149. The time of degradation had come. Eugene.
Gers was a camp full of mud. It was clay. When it rained, you sank into the clay up to your knees. One woman we lost really choked to death in the mud. Hannah.
Many Frenchmen were appalled at the injustice that the Vichy government visited on their Jewish citizens and dared to register their displeasure.
Here is the France, who lowers herself to treat men like cattle. Here in Marseille, police take pleasure in beating up foreigners who have committed no crime, but that of loving France. I know some unfortunate Jews who have already seen their goods confiscated in their native country, chased out and treated like dogs, and who see themselves led to the police station where they are pummeled under absurd pretexts. Anonymous letter to Patent.
You get confused, stupefied, woefully humiliated when you see the French covered by their police mandate tear men and women of all ages from their beds and deliver them to the brute. Their crime? They were Jews. You'd think you were dreaming. Anonymous letter denouncing the treatment of Jews.
While Vichy France was working towards a united Europe, many outraged Frenchmen chafed under a repressive regime who, in their eyes, had left their moral compass behind. They worked underground to resist the Nazis and the Vichy government. The Chant de Partisans became a musical symbol of the resistance.
Amis, entends-tu le contrôle des corbeaux sur le plaine? Amis, entends-tu ce frisson du pays qu'on enchaîne? Oh, et partisans, n'oubliez qu'ils sont ces alarmes, ce soir de la vie qu'on étoile le plus de sang, c'est des larmes, et des larmes.
With the signing of the armistice, General Charles de Gaulle immediately escaped to London to organize and coordinate the resistance. His stirring radio broadcast encouraged and roused the French to resist the Nazis and the Vichy state.
It is the tanks, the planes, and the German tactics which surprised our leaders and led them where they are today. But is that the last word?
Must hope disappear? Is defeat certain? No. Believe me, I tell you that nothing is lost for France. Because France is not alone. She is not alone. She is not alone. She has a vast empire behind her. I, Charles de Gaulle, currently in London, I invite officers and French soldiers, engineers and workers to join me. No matter what happens next, the flame of French resistance must not go out and will not be extinguished. General Charles de Gaulle, radio broadcast of June 18, 1940.
First of all, you must understand that the verb to resist has existed since human beings were capable of thinking. Like the history of humanity shows us, there are many ways to resist. It can be the defense of your house, of your family, of your land, of your country. It can also be the refusal to submit to someone stronger than you, and it can be the decision to oppose an injustice which picks on a person or a category of human beings somewhere in the world. Lucy O'Rourke, resistance fighter. The resistance explained to my grandchildren.
And the resistance movement began. Tracts and underground newspapers were secretly distributed.
I bought a small child's printing set, which enabled me to stamp on whatever I wrote down with the Boche, slang for Germans. I made about 400 tracts with the Croix de Lorraine printed on the back. A friend helped to hand out the tracts by crossing town on his bike early in the morning and dropping the papers from his gate. Andre.
In October 1940, I started secondary school. The press was censored, French radio was in the hands of the occupier, and television didn't exist. All we had was the BBC and the French Speak to the French broadcast. I and a classmate wrote the latest news from London on the blackboard at school. We copied distributed tracts dictated by London. It wasn't much, but what else could we do? There wasn't a recruiting office where you could sign up against the occupier. No underground newspapers you could buy at newsstands. You needed more imagination than the teenagers I could have. Denise.
The symbol of the Maquisards, or resistance fighters, was the cross of Lorraine.
On the 11th of November, 1943, 3 sections of armed Maquisards marched through the streets of Oyonnax and laid a floral cross of Lorraine, surmounted by the words, "From the victors of tomorrow to those of 1418. The army of the resistance came out of the shadows that day in the Hague. We showed the civilian population that the Maquisards were neither swarthy foreigners nor bandits, as Radio Vichy had tried to convince them. The event was even reported by the BBC. General de Gaulle used it as a decisive argument to obtain weapons from the Allies for the homeland forces. Here.
Jean Moulin, who coordinated resistance efforts in France, was constantly in danger.
I am now hunted at the same time by Vichy and the Gestapo, who are not unaware of my identity, nor my activities. My task is becoming more and more delicate, while my difficulties increase constantly. I am determined to hold on as long as possible, but if I should disappear, I should not have had the time to familiarize my successors with the necessary information. Jean Moulin, 1943.
Shortly after, he was captured, tortured, and murdered by the Nazis. Yet another victim is heard from. The final letter of a 17-year-old who was shot with his compatriots for distributing leaflets still resonates in France today.
My dear Mama, my adored little brother, my much-loved Papa, I am going to die. What I ask from you, particularly my dear Mama, is that you be brave. I am and I want to be so, as much as those who have passed before me. Certainly, I would have wished to live, but what I wish with all my heart is that my death means something. To you, Papa, if this hurts you as much as it does, Mama, I want to pay tribute to you. Know that I've done my best to follow in the path you have set for me.
A last goodbye to my friends, to my brother whom I love very much. Study hard to be a better man. 17.5 years, my life has been short. I haven't any regrets other than leaving you. Mama, what I ask you, what I want you to promise me, is to be brave and get beyond the pain. I can't write more. I leave you all, you, Mama, Serge, Papa, holding you in my heart. Courage. Your loving Guy. Last thought. All you who survive, be worthy of us, the 27 who are going to die. Guy Mulcahy, October 22nd, 1941.
Whether through private efforts or the efforts of organizations such as OSE, many children survive in hiding.
It is difficult to understand hidden child, but it's even more profound to be a hidden child for entire nights in the stables and to not breathe, and to be afraid of each step that you heard. Simon.
MC was a mechanic, and his wife a former cook. They immediately adopted us as their only children, and always presented us as their nieces. They were good, simple folks, and full of warmth. Dina.
I later learned that this woman who welcomed me was not able to have kids. When told, "But you know what you risk, having a Jew in the house," the lady responded, "I'd rather die having known the joy of a child than living without." So they took all the risks. There was a lot of tenderness, and when my mother came to see me, I said, "Hello, madame." It was very hard on her, and when she left, she cried. Lillian.
A social worker from the OSE, Organization for the Security of Children, came in the camp to see my mother and explained that there was a village, Le Chambon, who was looking to help young people, to take them out of the camp, and would she agree to let me go? She let me go. She loved me enough to let me go, because there were parents who did not. You're looking at me. Yes, there were parents who did not let their children go. As incredible as it sounds, they held on. My mother let me go. Han.
The town of Le Chambon-sur-Lignon is a Protestant community on an isolated plateau. Historically, being victims of a religious persecution, this community refused to be a tool of intolerance. Led by their pastor, Le Chambon was responsible for saving about 5,000 men, women, and especially children from deportation.
The duty of Christians is to resist the violence that will be brought to bear on their conscience through the weapons of the Spirit. We will resist whenever our adversaries will demand of us obedience contrary to the orders of the gospel. We will do so without fear, but also without pride and without hate. We do not know what a Jew is. We only know men. Pastor Trochet.
The citizens of Le Chambon readily echo their pastor's values.
It all happened very simply. We didn't ask ourselves why we were doing it. It was the human thing to do. That's all I can say.
I was stuck with two 14-year-olds whom nobody wanted.
They talk back, they're not easy, they eat a lot.
I said, the truth is that these children are Jewish. They are being hunted, their parents were arrested. And the man said,
why didn't you say so earlier?
And they took them. One Sunday, during services nearby, the pastor knocked on the door and said, 3 Old Testaments have arrived. And we knew that Old Testament meant Jew. And an old Christian got up and said, I'll take them. And he brought them to his farm in a meadow, and he hid them.
American Marion Fry came to France with the Emergency Rescue Committee, and working with the resistance, underground organizations, and the black market, managed to save 2,000 people before the Vichy government sent him home.
I stayed because the refugees needed me, but it took courage, and courage is a quality that I hadn't previously been sure I possessed. In all, we saved some 2,000 human beings. We ought to have saved many times that number, but we did what we could. Marion Fry.
The war ends at last, and the liberation brings mixed reactions.
Frenchmen, the moment this message reaches you, I will no longer be free. In this extremity to which I am reduced, I can only confirm to you what has dictated my behavior up to now. For more than 4 years, having decided to stay among you, I looked for the best way to serve the permanent interests of France. Loyally, but without compromise, I had but one goal, to protect you from the worst. Everything I did, willfully or by force, has only been to keep you safe, because if I could no longer be your sword, I wanted to be your shield. Marshal Pétain.
We came back to an empty place since the Germans had emptied it, but in fact, we learned afterwards that it wasn't the Germans who emptied it. It was our neighbors, the landlord. Everyone had taken a part of our belongings. And that's what happened to most of the Jewish apartments. Jacques.
Property is a sacred right. No one can be deprived of property except in public necessity and equitably reimbursed. Rights of man and citizen.
At Liberation, people danced in the streets. My mother offered me a splendid flower dress of pink muslin, entirely incongruous to the situation. Unconsciously, I knew that I had lost my father and brother forever, and I didn't feel like laughing or singing. Caroline.
The Americans arrived. They were received as liberators. It was an extraordinary thing. It was a celebration. Then we saw the women who had collaborated with the Germans being shorn in the public square, jeered at, and led about the streets with a swastika painted on them. It was frightening to see how the people could make an about face, to be extraordinary and monstrous at the same time. Amen.
We saw the American soldiers arrive, the Yankees, who brought with them their chewing gum, their corned beef, and their beet bomb. Of course we danced. There is no greater joy in the world than that of Jews and children. Gabrielle.
In the end, the human spirit remains hopeful. It takes a child to teach us.
God, how good you are, how kind. And if one had to count the number of goodnesses and kindnesses you have done, one would never finish.
God, it is you who command. It is you who are justice. It is you who reward the good and punish the evil.
God, it is thanks to you that I had a beautiful life before, that I was spoiled, that I had lovely things that others do not have.
God, after that, I ask you one thing only. Make my parents come back, my poor parents. Protect them, even more than you protect me, so that I can see them again as soon as possible. Make them come back again. Oh, I had such a good mother and father.
I have such faith in you, and I thank you in advance. Lillian Gerenstein, 11 years old.
The school where she was hiding was betrayed. Lillian, along with the other children and teachers, were deported to Auschwitz and murdered. Her letter remains to remind us of hope.
We have heard Frances' story in her own words. We listen, we learn, because if we don't, we are destined to repeat the failures of the past.
This I believe, that in the hardest times and through the worst, when people stick together, there is hope for change and aspiration for life to be set on the right path.
This I believe, that when facing the hardest of times, the best of human character will surface. When facing adversity, the heart of man will lend help to those in need. There is hope. There is love in this world. The actions of men when others are in dire need proves this true.
This I believe, that all people should have an equal opportunity to live life the way they believe it should be lived, without being persecuted, judged, or told otherwise.
This, I believe, that with strength and hope, everyone can fight for equality and achieve anything.
This I believe, that one person may not be capable of doing everything, but everyone can do something. And if we want to make a difference in the world, we have to choose between being the bystanders or being the heroes.
This I believe. No matter what religion, sexuality, race, shape, or size, we are all people, and we all deserve to be treated like people. This I believe, that no one is worse or better than anyone else. We are all equal. We are all born, and we are all grown, and we are all made of the same things. This I believe. If you can blind hate by love and open your heart to those who come knocking at your door, the world would be just a much better place. This I believe, that we are the same, that you can blind hate by love.
This I believe,
Because we are so blessed to live in a country that strives for equality and justice, we must come together to fight for what is right. It is our duty to stop the mistakes of our past from repeating themselves.
This, I believe, is the point where we remember the things that happened and where we learn from the past. We all have a voice, and if we're loud enough, everybody can hear us.
This, I believe, will help future generations to have a hope in equality for all people and to find common ground rather than judging one another.
As children's stories tend to put it best, the past is history, the present is a gift, and the future is a surprise. This, I believe, is why we must remember the past in order to educate the future, cherish what we have now, and look to what chances we have ahead of us.
This I believe, that we are all different and we all deserve to be accepted for who we are. Without friendship, there is only war. Without peace, there is only fighting. Without love, there is no hope.
This, I believe, that what we receive, we must share. To share our memories, knowledge, hardships, and experience is to ensure that history will never be forgotten.
This, I believe, that we must remind ourselves of these inhumane events and remember that we share one common ground, this earth beneath our feet. And because we are all different, we are all one.
This, I believe, was a turning point in history. The aftermath of the Holocaust marks a time of reflection on all those who do not appreciate their lives and those who spend their lives harming others. I believe that we should not dwell on what had happened during the Holocaust, but that we should grow from it and ensure that something that terrible never happens again.
This I believe, that we are all made equal, and the rights of man and citizen are what we must abide by. We must defend what is right.
This, I believe, there was a Holocaust. I believe there was a time of doom where people died like flies, and the people that killed them never cared. We must all avoid going through the time of hell for our future children and be the change, not just suggest it.
This, I believe, is a way to remember not only the ones who are lost, but also the ones who are saved.
This, I believe, with a positive outlook and a strong sense of hope, absolutely anything is possible.
This, I believe, in the absolute and unlimited power of love, even when there's no one there, in God's undying love, even when he's silent, and I believe that hope is always there for those who believe.
This, I believe, that the human soul cannot be broken.
Good evening. I'd just like to take a moment to say that this performance wouldn't be anything tonight without one woman's knowledge and compassion. It takes a special kind of woman to write, direct, and teach a subject so deep and so personal. So my classmates and I want to thank you, Mme Winegarten, for your time and dedication and for teaching us about hope.
years and has given us so much. Thank you, Mme Taylor. We hope our performance tonight, we give back to you.